think this is going to be a 3 or 4 part question here. So,
Perfect. Let's do
one,
it.
explain to our audience what risk appetite is and versus risk tolerance, and why that's important, or if it's important to an organization, especially as it relates to how they make business decisions. So, what is risk appetite? What is risk tolerance, and is that important to an organization?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my experience with this has been interesting. Over the years, I've seen a number of cybersecurity risk appetite statements that are very wishy-washy and sort of say things like, "Well, we understand that we can't avoid all risks. We don't want to accept anything high risk." Well, that's baloney. You're accepting high risk things all day long. Uh,
Yeah,
it's high risk to offer product and services in a competitive marketplace. Like that's just how that works. So we have to sort of better understand, what high risk means as translated into something else.
sure.
I think a lot of cybersecurity professionals, when they see those types of statements, are simultaneously emboldened by what they think is a management commitment to doing all the cybersecurity things well, but also disheartened when they realize that we're going to risk accept some findings and some broken controls that just we can't fix right now. And how do you sort of square that and understanding that we have other objectives in the organization? So, I give some examples of how to translate that into financial terms and to put some
Mhm.
bars and graphs around that in the paper. I found those to be relatively successful. But how much risk you want in your appetite for risk is a pretty subjective thing in general. So the important thing when implementing CRQ is to better understand how to translate subjective things into quantitative things and to effectively express the amount of uncertainty you have around a subjective feeling with numbers, and that's what things like appetite and tolerance allow you to do. I was able to get some uh, quantitative cyber risk appetite thresholds put in place by effectively offering management a couple different options. Those same types of bars and graphs that are in that white paper, I sort of show them and I say, when I originally did this, I put a couple different versions on there. Well, here's what it looks like at this number. Here's what it looks like at this number. And a third number. Which of these feels better to you? It's a very feel-based kind of thing, and that's okay.
Sure.
But then you begin to report out on that, and sometimes that's what accelerates that is showing. Well, here's what our risk scenarios look like expressed against the first, second, or third tolerance over time, and then eventually you can get them to say, okay, well, these ones are fine, but that one's not okay, and then you sort of derive it indirectly that way. I introduced the concept of cows in there: capacity, appetite, and limit.
Mhm.
Capacity is more like this full scale. If we had to, liquidate everything and pay it out, what are we capable of handling? This is sort of like a stress test kind of thing. If we had to draw down our insurance, if we had to hit all of the capital reserves that we had, and we had an event that occurred at like the 95th or 99th percentile, what could we tolerate? We want to be far away from this as possible, right? That's sort of
Sure.
the idea. Appetite kind of sits somewhere in the middle and reflects that general feeling of here's kind of where I would like to be. Tolerance or limits, as I call them, is a sort of lower threshold where we begin to say we've hit this early warning indicator, and now we need to start thinking about, do we deal with this in the current planning period or the next planning period? Because if this continues, and trending helps to show this story even better, we're going to be hitting our appetite limit soon, and that's a concern. So that's what I think really good um, risk appetite management from a quantitative perspective looks like for organizations. Thinking about expressing these values this way and then managing to those over time so that organizations have the opportunity to make corrections either in the thresholds or in the underlying risk that we're measuring.